Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Brett Russo, speaking on her journey through IVF Unfiltered. Brett Russo was born and raised in New Jersey. She graduated with a degree in business management from Bucknell University, where she also met her future husband. After graduation, Brett found her passion working beside her twin brother and father for her family's printing company, of which she is now the CEO. She married her husband in 2015, and together they fought the hardest battle of their lives with their journey through IVF. Brett lives in New Jersey with her husband and their 1-year-old son, who enjoys meatloaf and responding with nah every time his mom asks for a kiss. Hi, Brett. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So this has been a really fun podcast for me to prepare for, because I got to read a book, and your book, The Underwear in My Shoe, My Journey Through IVF Unfiltered, is really probably one of the funniest and at the same time heart-wrenching books I've ever read. But it really was engaging, and it just kept me wanting to read and stay up a little bit later than I might normally stay up at bedtime to get through this book in about a 2-week period, which is really, I have a whole stack of books next to my on my nightstand that I haven't done that yet. So so thank you for writing a really engaging book.
Oh, I appreciate that feedback. I really do.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. I mean, I feel like I know everything about you now after reading your book, but tell our listeners who perhaps haven't checked out your book yet, kind of like who you are and what's your story and why you wrote this book.
Well, so basically I'm just, I'm nothing special. I'm just a girl that, I got married late in life. I married a guy I went to college with. We got reacquainted after about 15 years, and we got married at 38. And we tried for about a year to start having a family. I was a healthy person, never had issues. I'm an athlete. I never ever thought that there would be an issue with anything in terms of fertility. I wasn't stressed about it. We tried for about a year and realized, okay, something's not right here. So which in itself is devastating. In the beginning it's fun and you're excited, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this didn't happen exactly the way I thought it would. Which I think is common for a lot of women. Not many people realize they're going to be in that situation, and no one really thinks they're going to be that person that is.
Yeah.
So we started fertility treatments, and I think for a way to cope, I started to write down what I was feeling. Because it's a lot. It's not something that you're used to coping with. It's not, it's not something that any of my friends had dealt with, and I didn't feel like I really had anyone to reach out to. So I just kind of started writing down my feelings. But as we got deeper and deeper into it, I never thought I would have a real story to tell. And the further and further we got, the darker and darker I got. And I think for a while I stopped writing because it was just too painful to kind of deal with what was going on in front of me. We ended up having 5 rounds of IVF. But once we did become pregnant, I remember I wrote a post up on Facebook, and I said, we are expecting, and I don't say this for you to be jealous or tell you my life is perfect. We had trouble, and, kind of alluding to the fact that we had IVF. I went to bed. The next morning I woke up and there were about 37 messages in my inbox. My social media was blowing up, and there was just so many messages from women out there saying, I'm going through this too. I don't know where to turn. And I was so touched, and I realized I have to finish this book. There are women struggling in silence, and you don't need to be. It's not something to be ashamed of. You're not a failure. You didn't do anything wrong. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And I felt very alone and isolated while I was going through it. And the more I spoke to other women, the better I felt. And I just wanted to be that voice for other women and for people that don't know what it's like. Maybe you have a sister going through it, or a friend, or a coworker that's crying in the corner. I think it's important to understand that though it's not cancer and though it's not life-threatening, it's very devastating.
Yeah, and it does shape and change you as a person. So any life event like that, that's going to have so much, shift, like such a shift on someone's perspective in their life. I feel like that's something worth talking about. And I think in general, I'm a chiropractor in Hoboken. I see women in pregnancy and postpartum all the time. But it's even interesting to me, the women coming to my office that are, let's say, maybe having secondary fertility challenges, because a lot of women in the New York area do start, they don't start a family until over the age of 35. That's pretty common in where we live. But they might even get pregnant with the first pregnancy pretty easily, but then they're struggling with the second one, and they don't even won't even necessarily tell me about it. I had one patient this week with a 3-year-old, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we're going through our, another round of IUI," and I'm like, "What? Like, you've been coming here for months, and you didn't even tell me you were having challenges?" Like, it was interesting to me how there's still like this heavy cloak of silence or shame, I feel like, is a big part of it. And it really is sad for me, because I want women to feel safe, that they can talk about these things. And after she talked about it, she felt much better, right? It's like a therapy. But I have a sister-in-law who to this day still hasn't shared with me her fertility journey, but I know it was a hard one. And I got some of what I assume was heavy hormone responses from her over the past few years that I now better understand, honestly, after reading your book, of really what she was going through. But it still felt hurtful to me that she just didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason letting me in to talk about it. So I think that's, this is a real thing. And, I didn't go through IVF. I have a 3-year-old son, but I would say, like, my sister-in-law, my cousin who did go through challenges, there was also, like, it was, weird. You know what I mean? They almost kind of felt like, oh, it was easy for her. And, so your book explains a lot of that. You talk about really what women are feeling. And I think it's good for women that are going through IVF. And it's also good for women that don't have to go through IVF.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things at play. I think when somebody is going through it, not only are they dealing with their own ups and downs, I mean, the process itself, which, you'll learn in the book, it's not just, and I didn't know this either. I mean, I literally went into my gynecologist in New York City at 36 years old and asked her, "Am I going to be high risk?" She goes, "Oh, no, not in New York. Don't worry about it." And, a year off after marrying my husband, and we traveled, and, all these things that I don't know why they don't tell you. And it's true that after 35, it's just science, your egg quality does go down by about 50%. And then, more and more. And, granted, you have 20-year-olds that can't get pregnant and 50-year-olds that can. So everyone obviously is very different. But, so you have the ups and downs of the process, which is painful. But then you also have the responses of people around you, and everyone means well. But to say things like, "Oh, don't worry, you're stressing. Once you stop stressing, it will happen," or "take a vacation," or "my friend adopted and then got pregnant." So all these crazy things where it almost like discounts how you're feeling. And it just, I think that when you start to open up, you kind of get back into your little cocoon, because it's scary. Some of the things that people, you would get advice from someone that had 3 kids that never had an issue. And it's like, how do you know? I think there's something to be said for not knowing if you'll ever have your own child. And I think that type of darkness is really hard, because what I've talked to women, and, my story is no different than everyone else's. It's probably far less than a lot of people's. But the same story is, if you knew the ending, you could go through it. You could
Right.
hormones, you could deal with the shots, you could deal with it. It's the ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster of not really knowing what's going on, or what's going to happen, or if it's going to happen. So, it's definitely tough. I'll never forget when we went to our second fertility doctor. We went to RMA, Dr. Scott. He was wonderful. And we had our first consultation. I'll never forget it. He was going through his whole spiel about everything. And he's like, "Do you have any questions?" I'm like, "Well, should I do acupuncture? I haven't been doing that. Should I eat less gluten? I eat a lot of pasta. I went on. And he literally went across the table, grabbed my wrist, and said, "Brett, this is not your fault." And I just lost it in there. And I think carrying around so much guilt. And I know you probably read that in the part in the book, like, we as women, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be a certain way, or, we expect things to just happen the way we do, especially women that maybe are, in their careers and have waited for later in life to have a baby, or, waited for the right person, or whatever, whatever it is. And it's not our fault, and we have to take the pressure off. And I think that, when women can open up to each other, I mean, I know a huge part of me getting through this, I didn't feel like myself. I didn't think I would ever be myself again. I thought I was totally lost. And I think the only people that brought me truly back to life was when I started opening up to people that went through it. And the more I talked about it, the more I heard about it. And it was just crazy. And, my dream for this book was that people would share with me their stories, and I could be, whether it's on the pages or someone reached it out to me, like, I want to be the person that's there for, whoever's going through this. And I hope that in the book, people can read it and say, okay, yes, this is what I'm feeling too. This is my life. This isn't as crazy as it may sound. And I'm getting that feedback, in return now. And it just, that was the whole purpose of it all. And it's a great.
Yeah, you're not alone. And in a lot of ways, this is not unique, right? Especially once again, in certain parts of the country where women are marrying and starting families later in life, like there's real issues going on here. And this, it's wonderful. You're creating like a sisterhood for women to know that they're not alone. And, you even gave like little helpful hints and tidbits throughout the book about this is what I found made the process, not that it's easy, but it made it a little bit less stressful, or a little, and it's like, you can't, the fertility doctors, they can't even know to give you all of those little tidbits, right? So that's what I love, that you kind of weave that into the book about, this is what I learned, right? This is the life lessons that I'm learning, and I can share that with you.
Yeah. I mean, when you're going through it, I mean, there's so many, there's the drugs, there's the shots, there's the hormones, there's your relationship with your husband. It's just, there's so many aspects to it. And, I think that you have to, I don't know, what I wanted for this book was for people to say, okay, this is what I'm going to expect. I know everyone has different issues, but I think the feelings you feel are the same. And, just wanting to feel like you belong to something, and I think all those little tidbits will help along the way. And it's important to laugh too. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yes.
That, I didn't want this to be, when I was going through it, I couldn't really find anything out there that would make me feel better. Any book, it would be dramatic. I just didn't feel like I was being understood in a lot of these. And maybe it was denial. I think you go through, I don't think you are at peace with the fact you're actually an IVF patient until you're halfway through. I mean, I really was like, nah, I'm going to be out of here in 2 seconds. This isn't me. And, I wanted people to feel like, you know what, this is what I can expect. And this is not that weird, and I think when you're going through it, all of a sudden everyone around you's pregnant, and you're seeing it, feeling it. And it's just more and more reason to feel like you're the only person on earth this has happened to. And I assure you, when you start talking about it, everyone has the same experience. It's
Yeah. Exactly. So, and I find that also similar, and I know IVF's not miscarriages, but women that have had repeated miscarriages, there is similar emotions, like the shame of there's something wrong with me, I'm embarrassed, and, that breaks my heart too, that as women, we can't come together, whether we've experienced it or not, and just support that woman who's going through this really real struggle and needs as much emotional support as she can receive.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, any type of, whether it's a miscarriage or anything, it's hard. And, sometimes even with miscarriages, your body's doing the right thing. Your body is, for the most part, I mean, there's so many different reasons, but, for the most part, it's your body telling you this would have never been a viable baby, but it's still heartbreaking. You don't start your journey thinking that. You just don't. And I think that the more people know about it, I mean, no one knew around me about IVF. No one. I mean, no one knew what to say. No one knew what it entailed. And that was very evident by the way they were responding to me. And I think that not only is it important to be there for the women that are going through it, but it's really important to educate people out there on what it is like. I mean, if you have a coworker or you have someone that, it's very time consuming, it's very emotionally challenging. I was in before a client meeting in my car several times crying, being like, how am I going to get out of this car? I look like I've been, beaten up in the face. But those are things that will help you be a better friend and a better sister and a better, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Through that education about what the process, because I've also never had such a complete IVF education. I felt like it was really, you broke it down, you covered all of the science, and you made it really easy to understand for someone who's never actually gone through it. And, it brings a deeper level of empathy. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I knew that if I was going to do this, and I know I had several arguments with my husband about it because, it's out there, right? I felt that if I wasn't vulnerable and I wasn't honest and raw, it's not going to be authentic and it's not going to do what I wanted to do. I wanted women to, in a sense, I'm white noise in this and my husband's white noise in this. I want women to take out of it what they need to take out of it. They're not going to say, oh my God, and judge me. I can't. We had to be vulnerable and put everything out on these pages because the women that are going through this are in a dark place. They may be in the darkest place that they've ever been in and will ever be in. And you can't paint a picture, this rosy picture that your life is anything but the reality that it is, or else just don't even do it. You got to go all the way with it. And I know it's hard. I know my husband's much more of an introvert than I am and had, it was hard to kind of have it all out there. But I think it was that important. I really, really was upended by my experience and I became passionate about being there for other women. And I hope this is the way that I could be.
I really appreciate you sharing the backstory about your husband. I'm in a similar situation where I created a documentary of my pregnancy and my husband refused to participate, which is kind of weird. It would have been nice if he had gone on camera, but he hates, he's introverted. He didn't want anything to do with it. And it is very vulnerable. There's pictures of me birthing, right, without any clothes on. But I feel like, to do it in any other way, this is the experience and this is, you have to put it all out there or you don't do it at all, right?
It's so true. And I think a lot of my book, I talk to the women and I know I've dedicated the book to the women, but you forget the men go through it too. And they deal with the grief differently and they deal with all of it differently. And I think that, it's important, especially when you're in anything, is to communicate because I know, my husband and I thought we were great communicators. And then, one night, I thought we were on the same page and I said, let's keep going. We got to find these eggs. We're going to do it. And he just looked at me. He's like, we can't do this forever. He goes, I can't keep seeing you like this. And, that's hard. It's hard to swallow, especially when you have no emotion left, no positive emotion left. And anytime you have those moments of positivity, you assume everyone's going to be in your corner, but it's hard. It's definitely hard on a marriage. It's hard. Anything is, and
yeah,
your point, I think men are a lot more, well, I'm not going to generalize, but, I think women, are a lot more selfless in that sense where they're willing to kind of put it out there. I talk to a lot of women who opened up to me about their IVF stories, but then all right, but don't use my name. My husband doesn't want anyone to know. And how much I heard of that.
Wow.
Which is interesting. I found that extremely interesting. And it was a pretty, solid trend. There was a lot of that. And I think women are innately strong and want to help each other. And I hope that the time of women being perfect for each other is coming to an end.
Oh, me too.
I really do.
Because it's, yeah.
More. I think the banding together with the Me Too Act and all of that. I think women are banding together, and I think it's a scary force. Who's ever on the other side of it? A lot of power, It's amazing the support I have had from women. I haven't even, I was a field hockey player, so of teams that I was on years and years and years ago, and it's amazing the support that you get, and this, I don't want to say sympathy, but people care.
Yeah. And I do think like more as women, the more we can help and support each other, I mean, that's really the evolution of consciousness for our world, right? It's coming from the women. So yeah, less of that petty infighting.
Yeah. You have a baby, right? And you have all these pictures on Facebook with women in, the babies in the pillow and the parents are kissing it and it's beautiful. But what you really want to know is, okay, well, I'm freaking bleeding in the bathroom. I'm in a hormonal spiral, and that's real. That's helpful. You know what I mean? That's the stuff that like no one tells you, and you're kind of like, texting your one friend that is open with you at 2 a.m. being like, is this normal? And I think those are the things that they're beautiful. I mean, it's ugly, but it's beautiful. It's real. It's, I always said like, you have to be real in life, like to fake it. I don't know. You're doing a disservice to everybody.
Yeah. And especially yourself, right? Like that's the first person you're doing a disservice to. So, I mean, yeah, you're extremely vulnerable in this book and courageous to put it out there. But I feel like that is a great model for the rest of us to witness and emulate.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, everyone has a thing. This happened to be my thing. And I think that going through this process gave me a degree of human awareness that I don't know if I would ever have had before. I mean, I'm a nice person and I always think of people, but to actually be in the darkness and to be in a situation where you don't know how you're going to get out of it, I think that it opened my eyes to anyone going through something that is not common. Like, for me to look at someone that's going through cancer treatment or just had a husband pass or, I don't know what that's like. And who am I to pretend I do? And I think that my responses to people now are so different. Instead of being like, oh, don't worry, it'll be all right. I said, listen, I don't know what you're going through, but I'd love to be here for you in any way I can and know that I'm thinking of you. Don't try to solve people's problems. And just knowing that everyone has their shit, they come to work, they've whatever, who knows what they dealt with, who knows if they injected themselves with needles or had bad news or, you really do have to assume that everyone's had a rough morning and just treat people that way, because those little like interactions can be the difference between someone making someone's day or not,
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And that is a beautiful way to kind of just approach life in general, just like, what is this person? I think it's also just really connecting, right? And when you connect with somebody, you can tell if they're really having an off day and they maybe need some space or just a hug. I mean, I know people haven't been hugging so much recently, but I love hugging people, and maybe that's all they need. Like they don't need you to tell them and it's going to be better, right? Even though we know time heals. They don't need to hear that. They need to just know that you're there to support. And I guess everyone has different needs regarding that support.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's so true. And, some people are going to be an open book and some people aren't, and that's okay. I just, I think that it was important enough to get out and just be a voice for people that maybe don't have one right now and they're in it, they're in it. And it's a lot. And, I think my biggest fear was with the book was to, I wanted to make sure I connect with people that had other endings other than me, because it's not about the ending, right? I mean, my ending ended with, a baby. But I think the message that I wanted to get there is if you want to be a mother someday, you will be, no matter what the package it comes in. And I think that that's an important lesson that you learn throughout this journey, that though there's a grieving process of an idea of what you had or what your whole life you dreamed of or the way you dreamed it up, I do promise you that, someday you'll look at your baby, no matter how you got there, and you'll say, this is the only baby I was meant to have, whether it was adopted or an egg donor or sperm donor. And, I've talked to so many women, this book is about the process. It's not about the ending. It's not about what happened at the end. It's just the emotional process that you go through. And that's what I wanted to, because there are so many different journey is for so many different people. And I didn't want to leave anybody out. I didn't want anyone to say, well, this didn't work for me, or this happened to me and it didn't happen to you. That was my biggest fear. But the purpose of the book is to say, our emotions are the same, and the things we go through as women are, there's a lot of similarities. And that's what I wanted to talk to in the book.
Yeah. And it was great that you shared the other women's stories too, of kind of what their ending was. And because there are so many different endings, right? And I think it's just recognizing that even if, as a woman's going through the process, she doesn't yet know what her ending's going to be. That's okay. It's almost getting comfortable with that uncertainty.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's very true. It's a crazy thing to experience. I think I'm at a point where I feel blessed that we did go through it for many different reasons. I think to pay it forward, and then also it did give me a massive perspective on being a mother and some of those late nights and things like that. You say to yourself, I've been through the ringer with this. It's not that, this isn't that bad. So I think perspective in anything you do is so important.
Yeah, and motherhood is hard. So, to your point, it's almost like you were training for that, right?
I remember my cousin told me once, she goes, oh, everything you're going through is just God's way of preparing you for the misery of being a mother.
I would call that intensity, but yeah, similar thing. So I was finished up your book on Tuesday night, and I saw at the very end your son turned 2 on Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, happy birthday. It's my mother's birthday as well.
Oh, it's my father's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Popular day.
And my brother-in-law, and I have a couple friends, so it is a popular day. So yeah, so tell me about how life is with a 2-year-old boy now.
So I don't want to give away too much, but I do have a 2-year-old, and I have a 10-week-old as well.
I was wondering if there was another baby.
Yeah. So that's been challenging. I think the 1 was much easier. The 2, that was definitely a game changer, but it's awesome. They're 2 boys and they're keeping us busy. And but like you remember, those first few weeks of having a baby, they're tiring. It's great, and you're kind of like in this bubble, but it's a lot of it takes a lot out of you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I only have 1 child, so I can't even imagine juggling 2. Plus, you're also working out of the house. Oh man!
No, it's true. It's crazy. I think we do it all as moms, right? We really, you're expected to do it all, but we want to do it all. We're raising our kids, we're doing our household, we're working, we're trying to kind of hold on to what we need to do for ourselves, and it's great. It really is. It's an exciting time. It's crazy. It's bad shit crazy over here, but it's great.
Mm-hmm. And the other perspective here is it's temporary, right? Like eventually you're not going to have a newborn in the house anymore, right? Like that period is so precious, and it goes so quick, and it's about trying to enjoy and savor it as much as possible.
It's so true. There's so many moments that are challenging, but you completely forget about them when you have these beautiful little moments with these little guys. And it really is it's amazing. It's just an amazing thing. It really is. It's crazy, but it's very sweet time.
Mm-hmm.
Or, puts everything in perspective, especially in the middle of a pandemic. They don't know what's going on. My 2 are young enough. They have no idea. And they just remind me every day how excited they are that we're home and we're with them and we're hanging out, and we should do that more. It's crazy. We needed a pandemic to do that. But
so your husband and you are both working from home, like professionally? Wow.
Yeah. I'm technically still on maternity leave, but I've been kind of getting back into it a little bit, little by little. So yeah, we're home and working and doing our thing. We have a nanny, so that's been a scene.
Thank God.
About 12 weeks to get her back, because we were like, should we not? And then I said, you know what? I think it's worth getting Corona just to have her back.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how, yeah, people that didn't have nannies and they had their kids home and both parents were working at home. I'm like, how do you do that?
That's the thing. You can either watch your kids or you can work. To do both is
You can't.
impossible. It's just something you're
Yeah.
doing
So, I mean,
past.
couples around here that were doing that, they would literally have to just take shifts, right? Like, you have a call now, I'll watch the kid, but like that's just so much juggling. It just creates more stress.
Totally. When we started the pandemic, my son didn't even know what a TV was. Like literally, we are so strict about like screen time and all this. Now he literally knows how to get the remote, get exactly what channel he wants. It became like our babysitter, you know. You gotta just at one point just let it go. Be like, you know what? It's okay, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is funny how things like that, like you're like, oh, I'm never, and we judge the parents that would, do that. And now it's like, oh, I'm that parent, or
Oh,
to get my son to sit on the potty, he's got his YouTube, like,
oh yeah, totally. I'm at like the pediatrician. They're asking me all the questions, and I'm answering them. And my husband's like, "That's not true. That's not true. That's not true." I see it in his eyes. I'm like, oh, you're giving fluoride every day? Yep. Yep. Doing the fluoride. You did the vitamins? Yep. It's great. A lot of like, you got to laugh in life. The weirder and crazier it gets. I mean, it's especially when you're in a couple and you're in, new territory, you got to laugh because the crazier it gets, the more you have to laugh because I think it's the only thing that gets you through sometimes, when
yeah.
you're tired and, unshowered.
Yeah, I mean, laughter is the best medicine, and it's just it's a wonderful way to release that pent up energy, that's in our bodies. So yeah, I think that's finding humor, and you really brought that into the book. Like you were just like, hey, this is something that you got to poke fun at these things, because this is real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to laugh. There are times to laugh, and there are times to grieve some real situations. And I think I've read books about IVF that were very funny, but they were almost condescending because they were so funny, and I'm like, this isn't funny to me. This is really a story that has comic relief to it, but I think there's a difference, and I think that that's so important. Like to your point, like you have to. The harder things get, you just got to laugh and it will get you through.
Mm-hmm. And it is important to also like emote, like whatever you're needing to feel. If it's, crying, screaming, yelling, like, just to get that out. I mean, and it almost sounds like when I was reading your book, there were times that you couldn't even control it. It was like, it was coming out whether you wanted it to or not.
Oh, totally. And, you have these moments where you build yourself up and you're feeling good. And then you either get bad news or someone says something stupid and you just find yourself down again. And that was the part that, like how many times, I think there's a part I say this where my grandmother used to say, sometimes you just got to go in the bathroom, put a towel over your head and have an ugly cry. And, it's so true. You got to get it out. You really got to get it out. I'll never forget when I was right after we became pregnant, everyone expected us to be so excited. And I was, but I wasn't feeling it. I hadn't cried yet. I was afraid that there was going to be more bad news or the next shoe was going to drop or something was going to happen. And I was really close to those feelings of grief. I mean, here I was a year in such a dark place and I couldn't just turn on the switch and be excited. I had a hard time with it. And it wasn't, and this is part of the book too, it wasn't until I came across all these needles and medications that I had packed away that I was able, it all came back to me and I just cried and I cried by myself. And I think that was the moment where I was able to forgive myself for moving on and for saying, this doesn't define me anymore. And I can move forward and be guiltlessly happy. I don't have to worry. And that's important. And I would say for anyone out there, don't underestimate the feelings you're feeling. Like if you're not ready to be excited, that's okay. That's not weird. I mean, it's okay to be worried. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to not be, throwing streamers in the air. You've been through a lot and you've been through the ringer and the trenches. And it's okay to be with those feelings for a little while. Take your time with yourself. I say whatever you're going through, like don't put pressure on yourself to be a certain way. Oh, you should be positive. Or you should be hopeful. whatever you are, you are. Okay. And whatever it is, don't force yourself to feel something that doesn't feel natural. That's okay. And I think that that's the healthiest way to get back to yourself.
Yes. I mean, and everyone has a different timeline of what that looks like, right? Of how they process their emotions. As I'm, working with patients one-on-one, it's just like, it is just important to process, at whatever that looks like for you. Because any of those emotions that just get stuck and stored are just going to create dis-ease, over time. So just live it, feel it, breathe it, share it, whatever works for you to help you to kind of go through it. Right. There's almost like a PTSD. That's kind of what I was feeling from you when you were throwing out those needles. It's like you had, just completed this very traumatic year of your life emotionally.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. I mean, there's a lot of emotions you don't think you're going to have that you do have. And those were things I wanted to talk to you too. I didn't want to talk about my pregnancy. I didn't want to talk about the kids. I wanted to talk real about even after I was pregnant. That's not when the story ends, there's still a process, a mental process there, and I think a lot of women feel that way. And it's important to get it all out from start to finish,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I hope people read it and feel a connection to it. It wasn't, I want people to say, oh my God, this is me. This happened to me. Yes, this is what I'm feeling right now. And that's what I want. That's what I want. I want to be there for you,
I have a woman who came into my office on Monday, new patient, and she's going on her 7th round of IVF. And I appreciated, like, right from the beginning, she's like, I'm looking for, support. Like, I'm doing the IVF, but how else can I be supported with this? And we were able to have, like, I told her about your book. So she's excited to pick it up. And, like, it's somebody who's, like, already been through so much. You almost feel like, oh, what else does she need to know or learn? But she's going to get support from this, at wherever she needs it. So I think it's great. It's not even just for somebody who's new in the game, right?
Right. Because especially, I mean, sometimes people have been in it so long that, they kind of just think it's the norm to feel a certain way, but it's okay we're all feeling the same thing. And again, it doesn't matter how long or what your stories entail. I mean, once you felt that feeling of sadness, I mean, you're in the club,
Yeah. I mean, this woman is now with her second husband because the IVF actually created, somewhat a divorce, I guess, of the first marriage, and different state, different doctor. So it's like she's kind of starting over, but yet she has that track record, started in her 20s.
Oh,
yeah.
Tough. I mean, I always feel for people that are in their 20s. I mean, at 38, I kind of dug my own grave a little bit, right? But you get people in their 20s, they just don't deserve to have to go through it. I mean, no one deserves it. I'm not saying anyone deserves it, but, you don't expect to have, issues in your 20s. That's heartbreaking, it really is. I wish her the best, and I hope that, she gets where she needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Not really. I'm really excited you're here. I hope that, you get the book and you feel good about it, and you can give it to someone else, pay it forward, that is, going through this. And for anyone who is going through this, you're not alone, and hang in there and don't let go of your hope. You will be a mom someday. I promise. Well, now, hook or crook.
Awesome, Brett. Well, I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your inspiration and your hope. I mean, that's what women, we all need this, we all need to feel hopeful.
So true. And thanks again. I appreciate it. This was great.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I had so much fun talking to Brett and learning more about her story. It was quite vulnerable and real and raw. Her book is amazing. I highly, highly recommend it. And I've already been handing it out in my practice for women going through fertility challenges and fertility medication. in IVF. I also want to share that I am so excited to announce my online program, Brayton Birth Method, is ready to launch. Check out on Instagram, Facebook at Brayton Birth Method, where you can find out more information. I'm looking for preconception women who are interested in going through the program with me from the beginning all the way through pregnancy and postpartum, and are looking for holistic education, support, community, and empowerment. See you there.